Hey, what's up? Justin from Make Supply here, and today's video is one that I'm kind of surprised I haven't done yet, and that is my 5 tips that I would give to someone who is interested in getting started in leathercraft. I tried to watch a couple of the videos that have already been done on this topic in YouTube, and a lot of them seem to focus on techniques and stuff like that, so I kind of wanted to do something that's a little bit more of a macro view. So even if you haven't bought any tools or leather or anything like that yet, this would still, I think, help you out and save you some time, hopefully save you some money, and make this an enjoyable hobby to pursue. All right, so my first tip is to choose a product niche or a product category just to focus on in the beginning. When you're first getting started in leather work, you're going to be bombarded with a ton of new terminology, a long list of tools you need to buy, and a seemingly endless variations of leather that you could choose from. For example, a category might be card holders, wallets, or anything you would carry around in your pockets. Another category might be gun holsters, knife sheaths, or anything you'd be wet molding. And a third category might be something like belts, camera straps, or even guitar straps. I think it's beneficial to narrow down your focus when you're first getting started because similar product types will use similar tools, similar techniques, and similar kinds of leather. The types of leather and tools you'll be using to make a card holder will also be applicable to wallets. The techniques, tools, and hardware you'll use to make a leather belt can also be used in a camera strap or a guitar strap. Getting started in a category like this will help you save money and avoid making the mistake of buying tools that you don't need for the type of project that you want to complete. And if you're brand new and not exactly sure what kind of projects you might be interested in starting with, I highly suggest taking inspiration from social media. And the best platform for this is Instagram. Now, you might not be into social media, you might not want to post anything on Instagram, but I highly suggest just opening an account. You don't have to put a profile picture on, you don't have to post anything, and just start following leatherworkers and getting an idea of the type of projects that are out there and things that just pique your interest. The easiest way to do this is just navigate over to hashtag leathercraft or hashtag leatherworking or one of the other myriad of leatherworking hashtags and just start browsing and saving different things that stand out to you. Outside of Instagram, I suggest just checking out different videos on YouTube here, although there is more of a time investment with that. Also, Pinterest is a really good aggregator of projects, and even TikTok is coming around now to having a lot more cool leathercraft content on it. When you're just getting started, focusing in on a project category type will really help you just hit the ground running instead of falling into a kind of analysis paralysis, considering all of the available projects you could be trying out because there's just too many. All right, my second tip is concerning leather tools, and that is to invest in sharp stuff and budget everything else. You'll learn really quickly that sharp tools are really important in leatherworking, not just to get a good result on your project, but also as an issue of safety. In this hobby, you're going to have a piece of leather, a sharp, stabby piece of metal, and a soft, fleshy, delicate hand working within several millimeters of each other for an extended period of time. And if your cutting tools aren't adequately sharp and well maintained, it can become a really bad problem in a blink of an eye. So what I mean when I'm talking about the sharp stuff is any kind of cutting knife you'd be using, so just a straight knife, a skiving knife in particular, edgers, hole punchers, and especially diamond awls. This here is a diamond awl, and this is a traditional tool used to punch your stitching holes one by one. And if your diamond awl is dull or made of poor quality steel, you are just asking for a hospital trip. Anytime we are cutting leather, we want it to be as smooth and effortless as possible. And anytime you're struggling to get your blade or your awl through the leather using excess force, that's just a sign that your blade is not adequate and needs to be sharpened or replaced with a better quality blade. Now, when I say invest, I don't necessarily mean go out and spend a lot of money. If you have the money to buy expensive cutting tools, I do suggest doing it. They will help out a lot. But in this case, investing can also mean the time you're spending maintaining these tools. For example, I really don't use any fancy leather knives at all. I use a Husky utility knife and a number 2 X-Acto knife for all of my cutting. So time investment for me is just making sure that the moment I feel any type of resistance when I'm cutting, that I make sure I replace my blades. And then when it comes to knives that don't have a replaceable blade, like my Japanese skiving knife and my French skiver, I make sure to stroke these and sharpen them when need be. So if you can, it is a good idea to invest a little bit more money in the sharp tool department. However, if a more expensive option isn't in the cards for you right now and you have to go with more budget-friendly tools, just make sure that you keep up with your sharpening and maintenance. Because at the end of the day, sharp tools lead to clean cuts and safe hands. So some tools that would fall into the budget everything else category would be things like a scratch awl, a wing divider, a bone folder, a mallet, rulers, wood burnishers. Starting with the cheaper version of all of those tools and then upgrading them one by one as you progress is how I would suggest going about this if you were on a budget. All right, and my third suggestion is to avoid cheap leather if at all possible. Look, I understand the urge to want to keep costs low when you're just trying out a new hobby. It's something you're not sure you're going to stick with and you don't want to spend too much money. However, working with cheap leather has a double whammy of not only giving you most likely a poor result on your project, but more importantly, an unenjoyable experience. Really cheap leather, the kind of stuff you might find on Amazon or in a bargain bin at Hobby Lobby or something like that, is just often terrible, terrible quality. Most of the time it's too stiff or too dry or cracking or has scars or it doesn't take dye and oils really well, and it's just really not any fun to work with. Rather than wasting your time and your money buying this poor quality leather, I highly suggest investing in project panels. Project panels in leatherworking are pretty similar to the concept of project panels in woodworking, where it's just a smaller section cut out of a larger section and then sold to you to do whatever kind of work you want to do. And while project panels aren't new in leatherworking, in the past couple years, just the sheer amount of new varieties and quality of leathers available in panels has just exploded. And just for an example, I can actually show you two project panels right here that I've been using. And here is a yellow Italian veg tan leather and a taupe color Italian veg tan leather that I used to make the latest wallet I released as a free template here. And I also used a project panel in this ghost camo leather to make this passport sleeve. Now, the reason I bought these project panels is one, because I wasn't familiar with using this type of leather and I wanted to test it out. And two, I really had no need to buy an entire side of a yellow and taupe or ghost camo leather. I just wanted a little bit to do specific projects. Working with project panels is an affordable way to give you experience working with a variety of different high quality leathers. So what I suggest doing is browsing the project panel sections of retailers such as buckleguy.com, Rocky Mountain Leather Supply, District Leather, Springfield Leather, and I'm sure there's more and more. I'm sorry, these are all US based retailers. I'm not really sure of who offers project panels outside of the United States. Hopefully someone can chime in. Pick out a couple different panels that look nice to you, get some work done, and if it's something that you really like, you can go ahead and buy a larger quantity of that leather for a much better price per square foot. All right, my fourth tip is to really take the time to understand leather weights. I think leather weights are one of those things that pretty much every single leather worker has gotten wrong at some point in their leather crafting journey. But it's also one of those things that's so important because it can really make or break your project, both aesthetically and functionally. And when I say leather weights, I'm basically just talking about the thickness of the leather that you're using. You'll often see leather weights denoted in two different ways. One is in an ounce form, something like 3 to 4 ounces or 5 to 6 ounces. And you'll also see it in millimeter form, so something like 1.5 millimeter or 3 millimeter, etc. You'll see ounces mostly used in leather retailers in the US and North America, and it seems like most other places will do the measurement by millimeter. I'm not exactly sure how they come up with the ounce weight. I think they take a square foot of the leather in question and weigh it, and literally that's the leather weight they give it. But I'm actually not a huge fan of that scale system. I don't find it to be particularly accurate, so I have been relying on millimeter more and more. And with the millimeter scale, they're literally just measuring the thickness of the leather. So when you're just getting started and you want to figure out what leather weight you should be using, this really ties back into my first tip of choosing a product category. While there is no hard and fast rules, there are kind of a general consensus of the types of weight leather you'll use for a specific project. For example, if you are looking to make a card holder or bifold wallets, you'll usually be operating in the 2 ounce to 4 ounce range, so probably that translates to around 1 millimeter thick to 1.5 millimeter thick, something like that. And if at this time you're just working on card holders and wallets, when you're shopping for leather, you can basically ignore anything that's over 3 to 4 ounces or 1.5 millimeter thick. And on the opposite side of that, if you're just going to be making belts or a shoulder strap for your bag, you're going to be working with slightly thicker leather. So maybe something in the 6 to 7 or 8 ounce range. So maybe 2.8 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 3.2 millimeter. And when you're shopping for your leather, you can basically ignore anything that's a lighter weight. And like I mentioned a minute ago, there are no real hard and fast rules for this, just kind of a general consensus. Some people like to use slightly thicker leather for projects that traditionally use really thin leathers, and some people like to use slightly thinner leathers and maybe double them up to make a strap or something that would be a heavier weight leather. If you're interested to see what the general consensus is, I would just Google leather thickness chart or leather gauge chart, and basically there are tons of these out there. Every leather retailer online basically has their own. And you can see what they list as the ounce measurement and its corresponding millimeter thickness. So when you're shopping for leather for your projects, please make sure to consider the leather weights. If you're looking to make a card holder and you have a 10 ounce thick leather in your shopping cart, that's not going to work out. And if you're looking to make a heavy duty knife sheath and you have a 2 ounce or a 0.7 millimeter thick leather in your shopping cart, that's also not going to work out. Reference your project to one of the many leather thickness charts out there, and this will save you a lot of time, money, and headaches. Alright, and my fifth and final tip for getting started in leatherwork is to use patterns from day one. Okay, this one's a little bit of a shameless self-promotion. For anybody that doesn't know, I am a leather pattern maker. Make Supply is my business, and this is my YouTube channel. However, even if I was not involved with making patterns, and even if you don't like any of the patterns that are available on my website, I still believe that you should be using patterns from day one. When you're just getting started in leathercraft, you want to maximize the hands-on time that you're practicing. You want to be cutting leather, punching it, stitching it, just getting a feel for everything that is a part of this craft. And that means at this stage, you should really be spending no time designing your own patterns. Designing patterns is an entirely separate skill set that you will eventually want to learn for yourself, and you should. But at this point, you should just be working on learning the basic techniques. Because what's going to happen is you'll spend a lot more time drafting on paper and pencil or sitting on the computer in Adobe Illustrator all day like I do now, and you won't get enough practice time in with your basic skills. But lucky for you, there are a ton, and I mean a ton, of free and paid patterns out there that you can start from. I have a bunch available for free to download on my website. You can search here on YouTube for free leather patterns and find more patterns being uploaded every single day. And that goes for any project niche you might be interested, whether it be wallets and card holders, making bags, leather sheaths, all kind of stuff. There is a free pattern available for you to do any kind of project out there. I believe you should start with patterns from day one because they give you an established goal to aspire to during your practice. You know exactly what the end product is supposed to look like, and although your first couple pieces will probably look nothing like that, it gives you something to compare against. I suggest finding a pattern that looks simple enough and is appealing enough to you that you would want to create 5 of them in a row, start to finish. And after you finish your 5th one, you want to go back and compare what it looks like from the first one all the way to the 5th, and then compare the 5th to the product model of the pattern. At this stage, you'll probably miss some of the more intricate areas of leather crafting, but some of the obvious stuff you can definitely point out. On your first wallet, maybe you had some trouble punching your stitching holes around a corner and keeping your stitching line straight. But by the 3rd time, it looked a little bit better. Maybe on the 2nd wallet, you didn't cut the edges evenly, and when you finished your burnishing, it was a little bit lopsided, but by the 5th one, you corrected it. The best way to learn is to offer yourself some constructive criticism, take notes, and then try to improve in the next version. Every single leather crafter out there has a box full of our first projects that no other human being will ever see because it's just too embarrassing. And that's a method that I used back when I was first getting started, and even today when I'm doing a project that I'm unfamiliar with. And just a quick little story to wrap this up. This wallet here is not the first bifold wallet I ever made. However, it was the first in a series where as soon as I finished it, I didn't want to just throw it in the trash. And I made this probably about 10 or 11 years ago, and I still carry it to this day as my everyday wallet. You know, it was the first one where I looked at it and I was actually proud. Like, I couldn't believe that I finally made a bifold wallet that looked like a wallet. And I think that's really something awesome about this hobby. The things you make will take on a utility function. It's not something that's just gonna hang on a wall somewhere where you might walk by it here and there and just admire your work. I've been carrying this wallet every day for the past 10 years, and it's been with me through countless life changes. And although I'm in a completely different place than I was back then, I can still just stare at this wallet and remember myself sitting at the little table in my living room trying to be as accurate as possible, cutting all these pieces and stitching it, and finally finishing it and just being so proud of myself. All right, personal sob story over, and I will conclude this video now. Just to run through my 5 tips for getting started in leather crafting one more time. The first one being to choose a project category or a project niche to get started. The second would be to avoid buying cheap leather if at all possible. 3, to invest in sharp tools and budget for everything else. 4, make sure you understand leather weights so you save yourself some time and some money. And 5, use patterns from day one so you can hit the ground running. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video and you've gained any value at all from it whatsoever, I would really appreciate if you could just tap the like button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps out my channel here. Thanks for watching.